Hey guys, hope everybody's well. um, Thanks for joining me for another short chit chat. I've been trying to do this video a couple of times now, and I keep getting this interference, so I'm blaming that on the full moon in Virgo. I don't know, it's kind of almost like a Mercury retrograde. But yeah, so things have been interesting. The energy has been very high fidelity, I would call it, the last few days. And tonight, just a lot of sort of, interference type energy. I don't know if it's that electricity between Pisces and Virgo. It's like both of those together. They're, you know, doing something. So anyway, yeah, things are good. They're good. They're just a little strange. So I want to do a quick chit chat tonight. I always say that, I know, but I want to do a quick one, and I want to talk a little bit about narcissism, one of my pet topics. I think I did a video on it, like one of my first videos I did for the channel, and you hear people talk about it a lot. It's become one of those topics where it's like a cliche, right? But I have, a sort of my perspective on the whole narcissistic issue is, I feel, a little more expanded than you typically hear it, than the way you typically hear it. So I combine it with the whole Aquarian age too, and just as an archetypal social issue, right? Not just individually or relationship wise, but as something that we're all working on as an archetype. Some Blue Lotus tea. So let's see, I wrote something a couple days ago, so let me see what I can pick from it. Okay, this was actually on something else, but I was talking about, this is actually something else, but the topic was the emperor versus the oracle, and kind of talking about how, again, using the archetype, because it's a dynamic that I've been involved with or in before. And, it's kind of dealing with the masculine and feminine energy, right? Like the emperor as this aggressive energy, and the mythology or the archetype of the emperor abducting the oracle to use her knowledge for his gain. Okay, which is, again, a common theme with masculine and feminine energy. And so you have an aggressive, I use the word rape sometimes, I know that's a little too much for people, but you have this aggressive energy, that seeks to, pull the knowledge of the oracle out, and then, try to reproduce it and manufacture it for the gain, again, of the masculine energy, the masculine, the emperor. So it's a very dominating energy. It likes to speak rather than listen. That's another theme. It likes to speak rather than listen. It likes to be heard. It wants to be heard. But the information that it has on its own, which is more of a rational, deductive mind, reasoning type, persuasion, it has to go study science. It has to go, study nature, study, that which is intuitive, that which is already known, in order to have something to say. Okay. So yeah, often you see the speaking above the listening, and that's why things aren't, don't always work out the way that they, in terms of trying to get better. And then I was also somehow tying that to, I had this conversation about spirituality and, religion. I've always studied spirituality in many different forms for decades, of course, since college, and before then, actually, even because I come from a very spiritual and religious family. But I sort of broke from religion to go into a deeper study of, spirituality and comparative religion and comparative belief systems. And then, as I spoke on the last video, into quantum theory. So even the science, the spirituality of the science of spirituality. But what always attracted me was mysticism. That was always the part of any spiritual practice or belief system, that always caught my attention and that always held my attention. So, I forgot what I wanted to say about that, but it has something to do with, it does tie into the whole thing on narcissism, because somehow I had tied it to, religion being, as we all know, being a method to try to control spirituality. And again, back to the emperor versus the oracle, religion versus spirituality, and then spirituality in the sense of mysticism. So going even beyond, spirituality, because everybody talks about, they have that one meme that is out on Facebook. I've seen a few times, where, I don't know, it's like two people dating, and then somebody says, the masculine says to the feminine, well, I'm really spiritual, or I'm into spirituality. And then the feminine says, well, elaborate please, because demons are spiritual too, right? I like that. Absolutely. Especially in these days, the occult has taken center stage. So, spirituality is not, it doesn't even mean what it used to mean. But we do, so, going back to this, spirituality versus religion, and then we have mysticism versus animism, right? And how in our age also we depend so much on literacy, we depend so much on book knowledge, we depend so much on, again, rationality and deductive reasoning and, this masculine minded type stuff, that we really evade mysticism, which again is a bigger or a more expanded version or view of spirituality versus religion. Religion also being something that has to do with wanting to control, emperor energy again. Religion is mingled with politics, right? So you have, laws, even the law of karma, but you have laws that are created or constructs or paradigms that become mandated, that, use spirituality in a more organized way, for the purpose of politics, more so than spirituality, right? So, you know, this is all stuff that you know, devolves humanity and our social structure, you know, because it's based on greed again. I want to, you know, I keep dissing the emperor, but it's like emperor, you know, we can say empress too, but these qualities that seek to control, and it comes from ego, right? It comes from ego. So you have the emperor, the king, who forgot that their mission was originally to protect and to serve, not to be served. Okay. But now, again, those roles have devolved into, you know, serving themselves, self-service, service to self. So being a king, being a queen, being an emperor, being an empress, that's no more about shepherding, you know, the group. It's now more about, you know, elitism and putting yourself on a higher pedestal to be served, because your ego feels entitled to that treatment, feels special. Okay. And so now, hence narcissism. And there's really so much to narcissism, right? There's really so much, but you know, that whole concept of self-service with the ego leading, it moves us to greed, you know, and exploitation follows. You know, once you begin to serve yourself, you know, you get into this whole Luciferian concept of service to self rather than service to all. It grows, it begins to grow a hydra, you know, it begins to grow in all different directions. And, you know, it's a part of what leads us into human suffering, you know, and people get lost with not being able to understand, you know, why is there human suffering in the world? Well, there's human suffering in the world because we're dealing with these backward principles, and they grow up on each other, and they grow up on each other, and they keep growing, and then they create something called ancestral karma, you know, and they get passed down, and you get to the point where you have a generation of seemingly innocents who now are carrying all this ancestral karma and feeling like it's not fair. But it's all a part of the choices that have been made that basically are a matter of service to self or service to all, or the one collective, right? Okay, so that's not even what I wanted to talk about. And we're already in 13 minutes. And I don't want to rush it. But again, I'll make it an introduction. Or maybe I'll do another version. You know, I'll record another version of this. But I really wanted to get to, you know, I even have like a list of some citations that look at the age of individualism and how the whole paradigm came to be. Because a lot of people, you know, I always say this. I think I was talking to somebody about this subject this week. That's how I got on it. And, you know, just started freestyling and channeling about you know, the paradigms, you know, like that exist. Like, you know, people just talk these days with, you know, me too included. But people, this is such a generation where everybody's so busy talking about stuff, and wanting to be an expert on information. You know, they just talk to hear themselves talk, and they really don't even have a whole lot of original stuff to say. Most of it is stuff that they've already read, that they, you know, again, want to just pontificate on. It's that, it's based on that that quote that I always use, that I used to use when I taught acting classes, by Stanislavski: love the art in yourself, not yourself in the art, right? And I would make my students journal on that before we even open the class, because a lot of people would come to acting class and it's all about, you know, I want to be a star, you know, I want to be seen, I want people to notice me. And then this ties into the whole narcissism culture, right? You know, because we're in a culture now where everybody wants to be a celebrity, and everybody can instantly overnight with YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram and, you know, whatever else is out there, Twitter. So, you know, and I was telling the person that this is not something that just happened within the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years even. This is something that's been cultivating. If we look at it spiritually, again, we're looking at, you know, a team of Luciferians, if you will, or another word you want to call it, you know, the, you know, the different orders of fallen angels and their affiliates, like brotherhoods and sisterhoods, you know, but orders who have been using, you know, been used as tools over millennia. So we're going way beyond, you know, just eras, you know, like modern eras. And it's been just a, you know, a constant deterioration of social structures. And even now, well, not even now, always has been, of course, the individual, right? But the individual was more connected to the group back in, you know, in the past, with indigenous cultures or cultures that were more balanced. There was always a not communistic but communalistic philosophy, where, you know, and I can talk on that later too, but, you know, where the group was always you know, placed on a high importance. It wasn't, so individualism comes from the, you know, the form of it that we seem to be worshiping now is a modern Western concept, truly. I mean, I probably shouldn't say just a modern concept, because there's nothing new under the sun, right? But in the form that we are practicing it, even the term, you know, it's a psychology, a Western psychology lens, right? But people must understand, because people don't really, well, a lot of people do research, but a lot of people don't research and read. And I'm not even, you know, big on that, as I've spoken about in the past, you know, as a recovering intellectual, proud recovering intellectual. You know, it's not about how much research you've done all the time, but what's a little, you know, what's a little unimpressive is when you have people who want so badly to appear as intellectuals, and they haven't even done the research. They're just, you know, snatching sound bites from other people who either are intellectuals or, you know, whatever. And it's like, but you haven't really gone deep into this, or else you would have discovered this aspect. So you end up with this very, you know, naked truth that is And nothing's wrong with the naked truth, but it's just fragmented. It's not holistic. So yeah, the piece I wrote was on the ego and the age of individualism, and it's looking like I'm probably going to get into it all. I'm going to stop the video and do another version of it because I've already gotten up to 20 minutes, and that's like way too long. How about I come back, or I'll probably just turn the video off and maybe come and do a part 2 where we move into more intensively looking at the age of individualism and how this whole concept of narcissism developed, and then juxtapose it with this age of Aquarius, which I've already, I think, done that in an earlier video, where the individual is a focus, but it's supposed to be at a higher level, a higher octave, that we are, addressing the importance of the individual, not from a narcissistic, pleasure-seeking, selfish, self-centered, perspective. Okay. So like I said, it's been a really interesting night. The other night I was in so much pain when I did that first video. I had a horrible ear infection. I feel much better now, but I'm still having a lot of sinus stuff going on. So, and it's the end of a long week. So, yeah, but that's for starters, opening up, and I'll come back and try to finish this, okay? All right, see you in a minute.